There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from a lack of people. It comes from too much surface-level noise around you. You've probably felt it. A room full of people, conversations happening, laughter everywhere, and still this strange sense of being alone in the middle of it all. Not because nobody likes you, but because barely anyone can actually reach you. And it hurts in a way almost nobody understands, because from the outside it looks like everything's fine. But on the inside, there's a quiet exhaustion from smiling through conversations that say nothing, from faking interest in topics that never touch anything real, from feeling like, deep down, you're speaking a language almost nobody else speaks anymore. Carl Jung said that the closer someone gets to their own depth, the further they drift from the surface where most people live. And maybe that's exactly what's happening with you. It's not that you're difficult. It's not that you're arrogant or closed off or weird. It's that there's a part of you that doesn't fit into small talk anymore, into surface-level friendships, into connections that never actually go anywhere. Today, I'm going to show you 7 traits, according to psychology, that explain why deep people tend to have few friends. And more importantly, why that's not a flaw in you, but the natural price of a mind that sees layers most people would rather not even know exist. The first thing that happens to someone who thinks too deeply is that they lose the ability to fake it. People around you learn early on how to keep the social game running, automatic smiles, canned responses, that "how's it going, good?" that nobody actually wants a real answer to. But someone with a deep mind feels an almost physical discomfort repeating that performance. Every time they pretend to be interested, they feel like they're betraying something inside themselves. Jung called this the conflict between the persona, the social mask we wear to get along with others, and the self, the true center of our psyche. And when that conflict gets too big, something inside the person simply refuses to keep faking it. They start pulling away from empty conversations, from social obligations that only exist because they're expected, from people who just want company, not depth. And to everyone else, that looks like coldness. It looks like distance. But really, it's the opposite. It's the inability to keep lying to yourself just to fit into a group. The second trait is that deep people see layers most people don't want to see. A simple conversation about the weather can trigger in someone like that a whole cascade of thoughts about time, mortality, the meaning of their own existence. A seemingly harmless comment can reveal to this person an entire hidden insecurity behind the sentence. And that's exhausting. It's exhausting because the mind never turns off. It's exhausting because while everyone else is satisfied with the surface, you're already 3 layers down, trying to figure out what's actually being said, felt, hidden. And when you try to share that, the usual response is an uncomfortable silence, or a, "Wow, you overthink everything." And little by little, you learn to keep those reflections to yourself, which, of course, only widens the gap between you and the people around you. The third thing is that people who think deeply have a low tolerance for shallow relationships, and that drastically shrinks the number of people they can actually connect with. It's not pickiness out of vanity. It's that once you've experienced what it's like to have a conversation that actually touches the soul, it's almost impossible to go back to being satisfied with small talk in the elevator. Psychology calls this the need for existential significance, the active search for interactions that bring meaning, not just entertainment. Someone with this trait would rather be alone than in bad company, even if that means quiet Friday nights, while everyone else is posting photos from parties packed with people. Because for this person, being surrounded by people who don't get you is a lonelier feeling than actually being alone. The fourth trait is an above-average emotional sensitivity, one that often unsettles the people around them. Deep people feel everything more intensely: joy, sadness, injustice, beauty. And the world, generally speaking, doesn't know what to do with intensity. People prefer emotions that are controlled, discreet, easy to manage in a 30-minute conversation. When you cry watching a documentary, nobody else found that moving. When you get emotional over a song that's just background noise to everyone else, When you notice a hidden sadness behind someone's smile that nobody else even picked up on, you start to seem like a lot to the people around you. And without realizing it, they start pulling away because emotional intensity demands presence, and presence is something few people are willing to offer. The fifth thing is that deep minds tend to question everything, including the social rules that hold up most conventional friendships. While most people go along with certain behaviors because that's just how it's done, someone who thinks deeply asks why. Why pretend to agree? Why keep friendships going out of pure habit? Why stay in a friend group that stopped making sense a long time ago just to avoid being alone? Jung saw this kind of questioning as part of the process of individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, even if that means drifting from what everyone else expects of you. Except that journey comes with a social cost. Someone who questions too much makes people uncomfortable. And someone who makes people uncomfortable slowly gets left out, not because they're bad, but because they challenge a machine most people would rather not touch. The sixth trait is intellectual loneliness, that specific kind of emptiness that shows up when you realize you're alone in your own thoughts, even surrounded by people you love. You can love your family, your coworkers, your friends, and still feel like nobody there can keep up with the pace of your own mind. And that's not arrogance, it's just a real difference in depth of processing. Studies in cognitive psychology show that people with a higher need for cognition, meaning they get more pleasure out of thinking in complex ways, tend to feel more socially isolated, precisely because most human interactions are built around exchanges that are simple, quick, predictable. And when you need depth to feel truly connected, the number of people available for that drops fast. And the seventh, maybe the most painful of all, is that deep people often carry a fear of being too much for others. Too intense, too sensitive, too questioning, too quiet when they need to think things through, too fully present when someone needs to actually be heard. And that fear, more often than not, makes them pull away before they can be rejected. They'd rather stay quiet than put themselves out there. They'd rather have a few real connections than a bunch of hollow ones that could, at any moment, reveal just how little those people actually know them. And there's one more detail almost nobody talks about. This kind of deep thinker loneliness tends to get worse exactly during the seasons when a person needs support the most. Because when life gets hard, when a crisis hits, or a loss, or some brutal turning point, that's exactly when the gap in depth becomes obvious. Surface-level friends know how to show up for the party, but they disappear into the silence of real pain. And someone who thinks deeply learns, sometimes the hard way, that real presence is rare. It's not about how many texts get exchanged or how many years you've known each other. It's about who can sit next to you in silence, without needing to fill the emptiness with rehearsed lines. And it's exactly those few people who, in the end, hold everything together. So instead of trying to squeeze yourself into groups that will never fully get you, maybe the better path is this: protect the little that's real. And stop burning energy trying to be understood by people who never actually intended to understand you in the first place. If you recognized yourself in some of these traits, understand this: having few friends doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you don't settle for less. It means your soul already figured out that quality matters more than quantity, even if it hurts sometimes, even if there are nights when the loneliness weighs more than it should. Jung said that the people who carry the most depth are also the ones who walk the loneliest road, because few people can keep pace with someone who really thinks, feels, and lives fully. And maybe real healing isn't about turning yourself into someone easier to please, but learning to value the few who actually stick around, who actually listen, who actually see you beneath the surface. If this video made sense to you, drop this line in the comments: "I'd rather have a few real ones." Maybe someone feeling alone today needs to read exactly that. And if you want to keep exploring this stuff about deep minds, sensitivity, and psychology, consider subscribing to the channel, because we're going to keep digging into these topics here. Thanks for sticking around till the end, and I'll see you in the next video.